I want to welcome everybody to the June edition of WMN. The purpose of the Women's Mentoring and Networking is to provide networking and mentoring opportunities in an effort to help women shape the direction of their lives, both professionally and personally. And I'm very excited because we have one of our newest members, Kelly Ashby with Kelly Ashby Consulting, joining us today and doing a presentation on emotional intelligence. And if you haven't checked out Kelly's website, Kelly can provide a ton of resources for your team, business leadership, coaching, all different types of breakout and training sessions. And I'm sure she'll talk a little bit about those, but if not, we can always help you connect with Kelly. And I also want to point out our next women's event will be July 14th, and we're going to be having a panel discussion, and I'm finalizing all of that here very quickly, and watch your weekly email for that information. And without further ado, I want to turn it over to Kelly. Kelly, thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you too, Heidi. It's just always a pleasure to work with you and Mackenzie and Katie. You guys are just such a wonderful team and supporting all of us and assisting us. So special shout out to Katie, who has helped enter the polls for today. So I'm hopeful to engage you in activities. So go ahead and eat your lunch, but keep one hand free to be able to respond to some of the questions and that type of thing. So I need you to get three things close in proximity to you as we proceed today. So I need you to get a pen, a piece of paper, and I'd also like you to have your phone handy, or at least the ability to open up another screen on your computer. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my slideshow here and dive into my information. So like I said, I'm going to ask you all to participate in a couple of activities as we proceed, but a little bit more information about me. I am a certified emotional intelligence practitioner as well as instructor. The model that I'm certified in, the company that I'm certified in, is called Genos International. The reason that I was especially attracted to their model is it's behavior based. And so hopefully most people know behaviors can be learned. And so while, IQ, which is something that we're kind of born with, and we can't really do a whole lot to make that go up, and certainly wouldn't want to make it go down, I know, but emotional intelligence is something that is learnable. And so if you identify some things here that may help you in your interactions with your customers, your employees, or even in your personal life, just know that this stuff can be, I can help you learn it and help you become more resilient and improve your performance and productivity. So a lot of people have heard of emotional intelligence before, but a lot of people underestimate the impact that it has on three pretty important things, especially in the workplace: our decision making, our behaviors, and our performance. And while sometimes people think, well, people should just check their emotions at the door and that they have no place, in the workplace, I'm going to explain to you today just how impossible that is to do because of the days when we used to live in the caves, and how we're biologically wired prevents us from doing that. But it also, I'm going to show you how that biological network that we're already predetermined or pre-wired to have also can sometimes interfere with our abilities to build rapport with other people, collaborate, and be, the best that we want to be when we interact and do business with others. So I'm also going to ask you some questions about, do you know how your team is feeling? And so if you don't know that, I'm going to introduce you to a great tool that a couple of you took me up on my offer to provide that to you free of charge, to find out what your team is feeling. And what that information will allow you to do is focus your energy more on things that can optimize your employees' retention, productivity, performance, and even their resilience. So that's a little bit about what we're going to spend our time doing. I want to go into some details here in case somebody doesn't know what emotional intelligence is. So emotional intelligence, in its simplest form, is about being smarter with feelings, but it's also learning the skills that allows us to perceive, understand, reason with, express, and manage the emotions that we have, as well as the emotions perhaps other people are demonstrating. And so really it's about learning those skills that allow us to do that to bring about positive results. And so that's the ultimate goal, is to have as high a performing team and even ourselves be at our best that we possibly can be in order to manage the emotions that, we encounter on a daily basis and actually several times a day. So I'm not always certain what is the most important reason why people are attracted to this topic, but hopefully I'm going to give you some reasons to be attracted to it by the time I'm done with even just this slide. So how can emotions impact your business's bottom line? Well, there's lots and lots of research out there that shows that, and I'm going to share some of this research with you, that emotional intelligence has been linked to increased sales and profitability, increased customer satisfaction and retention, leadership ability and capacity, which is definitely linked to helping improve and increase performance and productivity of your team. But other things that it also does as far as impacting the bottom line, lots of research out there, again, I'll share this with you a little later, that it reduces the costs that are associated with employee turnover, stress and burnout, which oftentimes is a symptom or a precursor to turnover. It also can be helpful in reducing hiring mistakes, and I'll share a couple examples with you on how it's used for that. And then most importantly, it helps all of us do better at reacting to negative situations, negative people, and even crises. And I'm sure that in the last few months, with the coronavirus and COVID and working from home and all the stressors and of the uncertainty that this current world is providing us with, that probably have been on your own kind of EI roller coaster along with the rest of us. So this is where you need that piece of paper. So I'm first going to zoom in to you personally and make this a personal experience. And I'm going to zoom back out and give you that research that I was showing on the previous slide. So I want you to get that piece of paper, and I'm going to walk you through an activity that I call the EI experience. So what I want you to do, I'm going to read 6 statements, and I want you to think of 2 very different people that you've had the opportunity to work with, around, or for. And I'm going to read these 6 statements, and I want you to rate these 2 individuals on the scale that's shown on this slide, from 1 to 5, 1 being significantly less than other people, and 5 being significantly more than other people. And if it's somewhere in between, give them a 2, 3, or 4. So what I want you to do first of all is I want you to think about the absolute best boss, coworker, mentor, coach, or teacher that you've ever had the experience, whether past or present, to work with. And I want you to write that person's name at the top of that piece of paper. I'll give you a couple seconds to think of that person. Okay, so now I'm going to start reading those 6 statements. And while you're thinking of this person, I want you to, again, I have the rating scale on the bottom of this slide. So use that rating scale to assign a score to each one of these statements that I'm going to read while you're thinking about this person. So how well did this person demonstrate awareness of the impact their emotions have on others? If it was significantly less than others, give them a 1. Significantly more, give them a 5. And somewhere in between, give them a 2, 3, or 4. Second statement, makes others feel appreciated. Number 3, is open and honest about mistakes. Number 4, considers issues from multiple perspectives. Number 5, manages their emotions effectively in difficult situations. And the last one, provides useful support and guidance. So what I'd like you to do is total those scores and just draw a circle around that total. We're going to revisit that number later on in my presentation. So you should have a total of somewhere between 6 and 30. So the next thing I want you to think about, and this scale is on a 1 to 10 scale. I want you to think about, to what degree did that person make you feel valued, appreciated, and included? So if that person did an outstanding job at this, was the best that you'd ever encountered, give that person a 10. If that person fell short, significantly short of that kind of feeling, give that person a 1. And again, we'll revisit these numbers later, so keep it handy. And then the last thing I'm going to ask you to rate is something related to discretionary effort. So oftentimes when people talk about employee engagement, they're talking about discretionary effort. And this is the level of effort people could give if they wanted to, but it's certainly above and beyond the minimum required. Now, it's important to understand that I'm not asking about your work ethic. This is about the motivation you had to give your all. In other words, to go the extra mile for this person. So my question, again, on a 1 to 10 scale, how much did your great boss motivate you to go the extra mile? In other words, give your highest discretionary effort to. If you were willing to run through that brick wall, walk on hot coals for that person, give them a 10. If you were only willing to do the minimum required to keep your job, give them a 1. Okay. So unfortunately, I'm also going to ask you to think about somebody who was not probably so pleasant to work with, for, or around. So, and either on the other side of that piece of paper or somewhere where you can keep these scores separate, I'm going to do the exact same thing. And I want you to think about the absolute most challenging or difficult person you ever had to work with, for, or around. And I'm going to use the same scoring scale and I'm going to read the same statements. So go ahead and write that particular person's name at the top of your paper, or if you don't feel comfortable writing their name, just some way for you to remember who you were talking about. Okay, so the first statement, I'm going to go a little bit quicker this time. And usually people can think of this person right away. There's no question about it. So I'm going to go a little bit faster this time just so we can get to the other information. Demonstrates awareness of the impact their emotions have on others. Makes others feel appreciated. Is open and honest about mistakes. Considers issues from multiple perspectives. Manages their emotions effectively in difficult situations. And provides useful support and guidance. So once again, total those scores and draw a circle or something around that so that you can reference that later on. And yes, I've been asked if you can give negative scores to people. I'm going to let you make your own decisions on that. All right, again, same question. To what degree did this person make you feel valued, appreciated, and included? If they knocked it out of the park, give them a 10. If they fell way short, give them a 1. And again, the discretionary effort question, how much did this person motivate you to go the extra mile? Again, on a 1 to 10 scale. Okay. Hopefully you were able to get that finished. Just keep that paper handy. We're going to come back to it in a little bit, and I'm going to engage you in some polling questions about your results. So a little bit about the kind of the science behind all of this. We know from the neuroscience of emotions, neuroscience has to do with looking at what's going on biologically in the brain when we experience different things. And what the research has shown, the neuroscience has shown, is that emotions impact these 3 areas of our work life as well as our personal life. So decision-making, behaviors, and performance. And so far, whenever I've done this presentation, I have not come across anybody who has said that these 3 things are not important in their workplace as well as their personal life. So let me give you a couple of examples. We all know, for example, we don't go to the boss and ask for a raise or more resources when he or she is in a bad mood. As far as the behavior piece is concerned, where do feelings of being upset or angry or even, sheer joy and happiness show themselves? Well, first of all, they show themselves in our facial expressions. They show themselves in our word choice, and they show themselves in even the tone of voice. So facial expressions, body language, all of that. When we're upset or we get triggered, we're probably going to be responding and reacting in a way that's not at our best selves. And performance. We know, think about it. When you're relaxed and happy, think about how much better you can perform what you need to do at work or even your interactions with other people compared to when you're stressed or angry or upset. So just thinking about those quick examples sheds light on, how well this stuff impacts these 3 areas. So if you need a more thorough list, I did put this together. So the effects of negative emotions, and I'm sure when you think about your own behaviors, as well as those of your team, you're going to agree with me that the list on the right-hand side would be a much more desired outcome. And so my question to you is, if you know that if people are feeling negative emotions or you're creating an environment where there's negative emotions being experienced by your team, then they're probably limiting their interpretation of events. They're probably shrinking away from opportunities. They're disengaging from conversations. They're more easily triggered, and their performance is reduced. So I just grabbed a few things from that left-hand side list. When people feel more positive emotions, research has shown that they're able to actually think better, so they can come up with more creative solutions to problems. They're more open to new ideas, they're willing to take more risks, they're more engaged in discussions or activities, and they even see more options and are willing to think more deeply about issues and problems. So again, I'd say if you knew, now that you know this, wouldn't you want to do everything you possibly could to find out how to create a work environment that brings about those effects of the positive emotions? So now I'm going to show you a quick video. This nice 2-minute video does a pretty good job of explaining some of that neuroscience that I was talking about. So I'm going to give this a shot here as far as, oh, hold on a second. One second. So Katie, can you let me know, can you see that video?
We can.
Awesome.
I can see it. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. I'm going to start this. I'm going to blow it up here and start this right now.
The driving force behind many of our behaviors, helpful and unhelpful. Just where do our emotions come from? Our brain is wired to look for threats or rewards. If one is detected, the feeling region of the brain alerts us through the release of chemical messages. Emotions are the effect of these chemical messages traveling from our brain through the body. When our brain detects a potential threat, our brain releases the stress hormones adrenaline and cortisol, which prepare us for a fight or flight response. When we detect or experience something rewarding, such as someone doing something nice for you, our brain releases dopamine, oxytocin, or serotonin. These are the chemicals that make us feel good and motivate us to continue on the task or behavior. In these instances, the feeling region of the brain kicks in before the thinking part. Sometimes the reactions of the feeling brain are so strong that it dominates our behaviors and we're unable to think rationally in the moment. Our emotions hijack our brain. While many of our emotional responses happen subconsciously, our thinking can influence our emotions, and sometimes this can be unhelpful. Just thinking about something threatening can trigger an emotional response. This is where we can manage our emotions with conscious thinking. Our emotions play a powerful role in the way we experience the world. Understanding and regulating our emotions through our thoughts and behaviors can help us take greater control of our brain and achieve our goals.
Okay, I think that does a pretty good job of showing that or explaining that. Hopefully I got that video paused there. Let me go back to my other screen. Any questions so far? If you have any questions, feel free to enter them in the chat box. I've asked Katie to keep an eye on that for me. But I'm going to dive into some of the other research here as well, as far as what I started this presentation talking about, as far as increased sales and decreasing costs due to turnover. So I really liked in that video what they talked about is our brain getting hijacked. And with that danger detector that I told you about, that we're biologically wired to be on the lookout, because there was a time and place when we had to be constantly on the lookout for dangers that were going to potentially kill us, you know, back in the days in the caves. And so we're still biologically wired for that. And so that's when I say that our brain can be hijacked and it can interfere with our thinking as well as our behaviors and our performance. But let's dive into some more of this research. So hopefully you kind of have that zoom out effect as far as how does this impact your organization or the employees at your organization. So a few studies looked at, you know, the importance of emotional intelligence as it relates to job success. And actually, I'll speak to this one first, and then I'll talk about the Carnegie, Stanford, and Harvard research. So first and foremost, 74% of executives and 58% of non-supervisory employees believe that emotional intelligence will become a must-have skill. Well, this has already happened. So back in 2016, the World Economic Forum predicted that emotional intelligence would be on the top 10 list by 2020. And sure enough, it has become on the top 10 list. LinkedIn has recently posted a list about this. But the other important piece of information about job success that Harvard, Stanford, and the Carnegie Foundation looked at is that only 15% of somebody's ability to get a job, keep a job, and get promoted in that job is related to the technical skills associated with that job. 85% of somebody's job success, getting promoted, getting the job, so on and so forth, is related to their personal conduct and their ability to put other people at ease. Those two things right there are two of the cornerstones to emotional intelligence. So this was one of the first slides that I showed you, and I'm going to walk through different research here to show you just how it impacts different things. So you can obviously pay more attention if you're into sales, then zero in on the slides about sales. If you're worried about turnover, then zoom in on the ones that are about turnover. So Sanofi-Aventis, they put pretty much evenly matched salespeople and sorted them into two different groups. One group received the emotional intelligence training and the other group did not. Now again, these people were matched as far as their dollars that they produced in sales. And what they found was that over 3 months' time after the training, the people who had received the training outperformed their peers by 12%. This is a clip, and if you're interested in getting the infographic that I have available, this is kind of a picture from my infographic about a lot of this research. If you're interested in getting that infographic, just reach out to me at the end via my email address or give me a call, whichever you're most interested in. But as far as what does that mean in dollars and cents, we'll take a look at this as far as what's it worth related to sales. Sanofi-Aventis was able to outperform their competition by $24 million annually. L'Oreal outsold their competition $2.5 million annually, and MetLife was 37% higher than their competition annually because they invested in emotional intelligence training. So how about customer retention and customer satisfaction? Now, all of us, you know, that's probably a priority with our businesses. Well, what they found was that studies conducted learned why customers left vendors. 70% of them said that was related to emotional and relationship factors. So the neat thing about emotional intelligence is that it allows us to build those kinds of relationships that have an impact on other people, especially ones that we do business with. Other things, as far as leadership effectiveness and productivity. So one of the studies looked at restaurant managers who had higher emotional intelligence, and they found that they were 34% higher profit growth than people who did not have a high emotional intelligence. This was linked to greater guest satisfaction as well as higher employee retention. Other things we know is that a leader's positive mood allows for or impacts job satisfaction as well as retention and performance. 97% of employees surveyed said that they could be more productive, and 49% said that they could increase that productivity by 50% or more if they were working for someone who demonstrated a positive mood in the workplace. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be one of these kinds of cheerleaders and rah-rah people and not be real. What I'm talking about is that there are 42 behaviors in this model that can shed some light and help you improve in areas that will allow you to have that kind of impact on your team as well as your customers. So let's say you don't supervise other people and maybe you work on your own, just like I do. Well, what research has also found is that emotional intelligence has twice the power of IQ to predict performance and is a better predictor than employee skill, knowledge, or expertise. So you can see the kinds of things that they have listed there under emotional intelligence, things like achievement, cooperation, empathy, impact, motivation, teamwork, versus IQ, cognitive intelligent competencies such as analytical thinking and conceptual thinking. Now, I'm not saying that those things aren't important, and certainly it's industry specific, but emotional intelligence across the board has 2 times the power of IQ to predict top performers. Now let's take a look at reducing costs due to turnover. This was a hospital that was averaging about 28% turnover on an annual basis, which is pretty high. And what they did was they implemented an emotional intelligence and stress management training program for a group of trainees. And what they found was that they were able to reduce turnover by 80% amongst those trainees. But the interesting thing here is even the people that didn't go through the training benefited from the change in the workplace culture. And so as far as all staff, they reduced turnover by 50%, even amongst those people that didn't go through the specific training. And this particular hospital saved nearly $800,000 in 1 year. A couple of other companies, I'll just read the one about Pepsi. Pepsi saved $4 million by experiencing an 87% decrease in executive turnover. So you can see just reducing cost, it would be a significant improvement on the bottom line. How about hiring mistakes? Here's 2 examples. So yeah, you can use our assessments to help inform you better on the people that you're selecting. And the way that it works is this. So for example, the Air Force, they found that their pararescue jumper candidates needed a certain set of emotional intelligence skills to more likely complete the training course that they had to go through to become a pararescue jumper. And so they ended up saving $190 million as a result of being able to better match those kinds of employees who are more likely to complete that training. Same kind of thing with the sales representatives at a computer company. Those that were hired based on emotional intelligence were 90% more likely to finish their training than people that were hired based on other criteria. So this is the information about the Emotional Climate Index, which is the tool that I mentioned a little bit ago about, hey, if you want to know how your people are feeling, this might be a good reason why you might care about this. Well, GENOS is based out of Australia. And so 3 schools, College of Businesses in Australia, the Copenhagen Business School, the Macquarie University, and then the Australian School of Business, did a study and looked at high performing and low performing workplaces. And how they separated those 2 into the 2 groups was they simply looked at objective measures. So looked at several hundred companies, and they looked at productivity, growth, employee retention, and performance. And so they divided the companies into these 2 lists. And you can see on this spiderweb graph, the people in the high performing workplaces are represented by this blue line. And then the people that were working in the low performing workplace are represented by this red line. So once they had the companies divided into those 2 groups, they went in and asked the employees, okay, what percentage of the time do you feel these different feelings? And when the original study was done, you can see the words or the feelings on the outside of the spider web. Those were the things that they asked them about. And so half of those are what we would call productive or positive related emotions, and the other half are what we call unproductive or negative emotions. So you can see, or how you read this particular graph, is that the people in the high performing workplaces felt positive emotions a greater percentage of the time than the negative emotions. And the people that worked at low performing workplaces were feeling the negative emotions more so than the people working at the high performing workplaces. So as far as how this impacts productivity, growth, and employee retention, this is where that comes from, is some of these studies. So the ECI, again, this is the tool that I have that I can make available to you, basically asks your employees 3 things. And you can see that the words or the emotions on the outside of this spider web, they changed it, some of them to be, more applicable to the workplace that we currently experience. And so they ask the employees, what do you currently feel, or what percentage of the time do you feel this particular emotion? How often do you feel valued? How often do you feel mistreated? How often do you feel informed? But then they also ask, what do you expect to feel given this line of work, given the context of your workplace? How much would you expect to feel these particular feelings? And then the last question is, okay, so ideally, in order for you to be at the best of your game, how often would you need to feel these feelings? And so you can see there's 3 lines going on this particular graph. And the idea here is that anytime there's a gap between the current state and the expected state, or the current state and the ideal state, it identifies a place for improvement. So for example, on this particular one, you can see down there on exhausted, as far as what people are currently feeling, is pretty high, 4.3. And what they're saying, that they would expect would be 3.9. And then for them to be at the top of their game, that would need to be about a 2.7. So in this case, we'd be looking at, okay, so how can we help our staff not feel so exhausted, and think through strategies to implement, if possible, to help lessen that gap. So that's how that particular tool works, and that's one of the things that I can assist you with if you're interested in. All right, Katie, so you're up with the polls. So I want you all to pull out those pieces of paper, and this is where the engagement part of my time with you kicks in. So please take out that piece of paper, and Katie, if you could pull up poll number 1. Please answer the question, what was your total score for your great boss? Okay. All right, so I see it looks like most people are done. Go ahead and share the results, Katie, for the attendees. Everybody see that okay now? All right, so what this shows me is that just like anytime I do this face-to-face, usually I end up with scores, total scores for the greatest boss at 22 or higher. And so this group is close to that. Okay, go ahead and stop sharing that one and do the second poll. Okay, so this is what was your total score for the difficult boss? And usually, yep, and it's coming through. Usually I get scores that are very different than the first one. So this is consistent once again. So it looks like everybody's in. Go ahead and share the results, Katie. Thank you very much. So you can see just with our small group that once again, I only read you 6 behaviors, 6 statements, and you were able to, hopefully you can see a difference here, barely clearly see that there was a difference in the way these 2 people showed up with how they interacted with you. And you can see that it's measurable by the scores that are showing on this particular screen. Okay, Katie, go ahead and clear that for me. Maybe I can clear it. Let me see. Okay, there we go. All right. Oops.
You want that yet?
Not yet. All right, hold on a second here. Sorry about the awkwardness here, everybody. Okay, so we did that. Now I would like you to pull out your phones, and I want you to think about that great boss, teacher, coworker, and I want you to take out your phones, and the phone number that you're going to text this to is 37607. So follow the directions at the top of the screen. So text Kelly Ashby 999 to the number 37607. And once you get there, I would like you to send in like 2 different feeling words, emotion words, about how that great boss made you feel when you got to, or coworker, mentor, coach, or teacher, when you got to interact with them. Katie and Heidi, you're welcome to participate too, and Mackenzie if you want to.
Okay.
That way I know it's working.
Kelly, can you remind us again what the instructions were?
Yeah, I want you to, I see some of the responses coming in now. So take out your phone and I want you to text a couple of different emotion words. But first, to participate in this, you need to text the number 37607. That's the phone number to text this to. And you send Kelly Ashby 999. And then you should be able to type in some emotion words. Hopefully everybody's seeing that populate on the screen right now. So I'm seeing happy and valued, appreciated, respected. That's wonderful. And then what you'll notice here is as that word cloud kind of changes and morphs, whatever is the most common feeling that all of you have entered is what's showing up in the different sizes. So appreciated and respected and happy are the 3 most common ones coming in right now. Excellent. You guys are doing great at this. Fun. Yeah. So you can see that impact on how you felt is very evident as far as even thinking about those words on the outside of that spider web. All right. So let me clear the responses. Stay in there with the phone and the texting and all that. What I want you to do now is, let me make sure I can get all of these cleared, is I want you to think about trying to get that last one cleared there. I guess it's not gonna play, there we go. Now I want you to think about that most difficult and challenging boss. Looks like a few of them are still coming in. Think about that difficult boss. How did that person make you feel? And go ahead and type in, 2 to 3 to 4 different feeling words when you think about how it felt to be around that person. Yeah. Very good. Frustrated. Yeah. A lot of them coming in here. It looks like frustrated and small are certainly number 1 and 2. Disappointed, discouraged. Hopefully you can, yeah, there's a lot of words coming out. Like I said, usually when I facilitate this face-to-face, yeah, people have no problem coming up with the words for this one. So take a look at that and think about the impact that had on your willingness to engage or your willingness to give your all under those circumstances. And I remember, when I first did this activity for myself, it was actually a coach of mine that I had in my past, and I could not wait to get out of that gym and away from that particular coach. It was that bad, and usually that's kind of the impact that these people can have on us. So hopefully, you're able to enjoy that particular activity. Let me see if I can get to the next. There we go. Next slide and next poll. So this is the number that you rated 1 to 10. To what degree did your great boss make you feel valued, appreciated, and included? And Katie, go ahead and get that poll going for me, please. Wow, that's fantastic. I know you can, I'll let Katie share it as soon as we get all the up to 8. Yeah, there we go. So go ahead and share that. Thanks, Katie. So definitely above, 5, I have one person 5 to 6, but definitely 7, 8s, 9s, and 10s. So definitely an impact there. Now, how about the next question, Katie, the degree with the difficult boss? I think that's the next one.
This one?
Yep. So what degree did your difficult boss make you feel valued, appreciated, included? Okay, so again, go ahead and share the results there, Katie. You're doing a great job, by the way, Katie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So again, I hope you all can see, you know, you're the common denominator here. You were the same person, but how these two different people interacted with you and how they showed up, the behaviors that they demonstrated had a great impact on you because you're the same person. All right, go ahead and put up the question about the discretionary effort. The extra mile, perfect. So now, how much did that great boss motivate you to go the extra mile? So again, this isn't about work ethic. This is about being motivated to do everything you possibly could to make that person or that organization be the best that they could because of how this person impacted you. Very good. So again, very clear. Go ahead and share the results, Katie. Very clear that there's a difference in how these people showed up with you all and what they were able to, how they were able to impact you. All right, last poll. Let's do the one for the difficult boss for the extra mile. Okay. All right, well, good. I hope that there's an opportunity to discuss this. So 4 of you shared that it was a 1 to 2. I do have some that are above 5, 6, above the 5, the halfway mark. Oftentimes what I run into there is that, well, that person, you know, I was gonna give my all regardless. And so that's some of what the discussion usually comes around to being when you get the, you know, high scores for discretionary effort or the extra mile for this one. All right, go ahead and stop sharing that for me, Katie. And I'll need to fast forward through these real quick. Okay, so hopefully that exercise, you know, both how it impacted yourself and then all the data that I shared with you about how it impacts organizations have made it clear that emotions impact how we show up at work. And so this particular slide is basically an iceberg. And so oftentimes we can't automatically tell what somebody's feeling by looking at them, but we can make some pretty good guesstimates based upon the behaviors that they demonstrate. So when you look at, like on the left-hand side of this, when people feel anxious, they tend to be more reactive. When people are stressed, they're more aggressive. So think about, you know, when people are stressed, maybe they snap out at you when they're answering a question or something like that. And when people are exhausted, they tend to be more problem focused rather than solution focused. Now, when you look at the right-hand side of this, which are more of the positive emotions, you can see the behaviors that are demonstrated there. When people feel valued, they're more likely to promote the brand. And what that means is they're more likely to say, this is a great place to work and do business with. So they're going to be talking positively about your organization. When people feel informed, they're more bought in. I mean, think about right now how we're hearing different information about wear masks, don't wear masks, wear masks. You know, it's all changing, it seems like daily as far as the information we're getting. Well, once that information becomes solid and we know that we have the most current information, we're more bought into whatever it is the company's wanting us to do. And then the last one there, appreciated. Well, you know, that exercise on discretionary effort kind of displayed that as far as when we feel appreciated, we're more willing to go that extra mile. All right, so I'm winding down here, want to be able to leave time for any questions or feedback or anybody who's interested in doing one of those ECIs for their own team. So now what? And this was the piece that Heidi asked me to speak to when we started. Some of the things that I can do for individuals and companies is I do, you know, group trainings, I do one-on-one coaching. I certainly have lots of assessments on this particular topic that I can either apply or administer for you as an individual or your entire, you know, say supervisory staff, whatever. Come in and do training, whether it's a full day training, a 2-hour training. I even have an option for, you know, a 6-month combination of education and training, as well as coaching and peer peer learning, pairing up you with a peer to go deeper into the information. What if I want to know what my team is experiencing? If you're interested in doing or having an emotional climate index conducted for your team, it's really super easy. A few of you took me up on it, so if you're willing to speak to how easy it was to administer, I invite you to share that. So if you're interested in that, reach out to me at my email, kelly@kellyashbyconsulting.com, and my first name is spelled with 2 E's, Kelley, or even just give me a phone call and we can talk through some of the services that I can provide you and your staff. So I'm going to stop sharing my slides and get back to seeing you all again. Anybody want to weigh in on anything from what I talked about? Any questions?
Kelly, this is Heidi. It's funny to me. I have heard so many times that, hey, it's not personal, it's just business. And coming off of that and trying to wrap my head around that, it really does make a difference, and everything is personal because we're human beings. How do you work with a team when, I'm just going to go out on a limb here, there's probably always somebody that maybe is a little more negative than somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
How do you help make that person see how their behavior affects others?
Well, that's actually one of the competencies. So this particular model has 6 competencies, and within each competencies, there's 7 behaviors. And so, if somebody's a Debbie Downer, negative Nancy, or, not to be gender, slamming the names there, we, can find a way to say, negative Nick or something. There are behaviors that talk about, being those people that show up constantly as the glass half empty, and sharing, with the assessments, they can find out, hey, is that me? And what's the impact that that's having on the rest of the team? And then through individual coaching, be able to shed light on, okay, so when you do this or say that or show up in this way, others may be perceiving you as negative Nick, and you probably want to start turning that around, and here are some specific behaviors and actions that you could take to turn that around. That's another nice thing about this model and the assessments is it has a whole list of development tips. And so, like inspiring or being a positive influence for other people, it gives you specific ideas of the actions that you can take to start turning that around. So that's kind of a really helpful tool, would be the combination of the assessment with the development tips and coaching. Does that help?
Absolutely. And I loved that emotional intelligence was 2 times the power of the IQ to determine, predict performance. Excuse me. I've never heard that. And I found that pretty fascinating too. Yeah.
As a kid, I was, I share this with, close friends. I'll share it with you all since I consider you all close friends. My oldest brother was, constantly heard about how great his IQ was. And it was, of course, the rest of us didn't have as high of an IQ. And when emotional intelligence came out, it was just like, yes, that makes so much more sense to me, because it's how we interact with one another as far as leadership capacity is concerned. And leadership is about inspiring other people to obtain goals and go after goals and accomplish those goals. And so it's not about your IQ, it's about how able you are to interact with other people. So that's a little bit of one of my deep secrets that I'll share with you all. Other questions? Any ahas for anybody, or confirming information that you already had?
Well, I thought it was interesting. I didn't do a boss. I did 3 employees.
Okay.
And it's very enlightening.
Okay. Do you want to just leave it at that and we'll talk later?
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that.
All right, that sounds good.
Hi, Kelly. This is Katie Roberts.
Hi, Katie.
I was wondering, so what are some good questions to ask during the hiring process to kind of get a feel for emotional intelligence, and not in a way that I'm going to ask, like, hey, are you easy to work with? And they say, yes, of course I'm easy to work with. You know, what are some good questions to ask so that you don't get that new person in? And if you're trying to, and I'm not hiring right now, but, you know, if you're looking to build a good culture of high emotional intelligence in your workplace.
Yeah. That's a great question, Katie. Thank you for asking that. So I'll explain kind of how we use the emotional intelligence assessments and the selection tool that we have. So we encourage people not to use the selection tool as whoever scores highest, that's who you hire. Instead, it's just another piece of information, you know, about that person, just like if you were going to do reference checks. It's another piece of information that should guide you in what questions to ask them to allow you to dig deeper on that. So for example, if somebody isn't aware of the impact that their emotions are having on other people, a question that you might, and I'm just going to wing it here because I don't have the questions memorized from that particular report, would be, so can you tell us about a time when you were frustrated and that impacted the rest of your team? What was the result of that, and how did you go about handling that situation, or something like that? Again, I'm kind of winging that part, but there are, with our selection tool, some great examples of some questions that will allow you to dive deeper with your candidates. But with the 6 competencies of the model are self-awareness. So that has to do with, are you aware of what you're feeling and how it's impacting your team? Awareness of others has to do with that ability to perceive other people's emotions, to read other people. Authenticity has to do with being open and honest about mistakes, being vulnerable and genuine. Self-management has to do with being able to manage those emotions. So when you're under stress or under, you know, feeling frustrated or negative things, do you lash out at other people? And then positive influence, or if you're a leader, inspiring performance is the last competency. And so it gives you questions to ask the candidate based upon the results for each one of those competency areas. I know that's not a great answer to your question, Katie, but I can follow up with a one-on-one phone call if you want, and I can pull out the selection tool and show you what's available in that.
That was great. That was a good start, and I am interested in the selection tool.
Okay. Can you Heidi or somebody, will you be able to get me Katie's contact information? Or Katie, can you reach out to me via my email?
Yeah, and I can put it in the chat too.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Other questions? So, Maddie, do you mind speaking to the ease of the ECI at all? Would that be anything you'd be willing to speak to?
Sure. It was easy to do, and I just told my employees that they needed to do it, and the deadline to do it was in 2 or 3 days. And I think you told me that all of them did it. And so it's very interesting. And it was easy.
Good.
And it was painless. And it was interesting to go through the process and think about it.
Okay, good.
But I'm kind of a junkie when it comes to personal development stuff, and so I really I enjoy those kinds of self-assessment.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun for me, and then the real question is, what do I do with the information now that I have it?
Exactly. And I will be able to help you with that, Maddie. Cindy, do you want to weigh in on that? You two also took me up on my offer. How easy was it? Was it painless?
Yeah, I would echo exactly what Maddie said. You sent the code, you had some explanation of what it was, so it was very easy for me to just add a little comment about why now and timeline, that sort of thing, and forward it on. So very easy to do that, and I'm excited to dive in a little bit deeper and see what I can do better.
Excellent. Thank you both for letting me put you on the spot like that. Yeah, I think the neat thing about it is, especially during this stressful and uncertain time with what we're dealing with right now with or have been for the past few months, is it's a great way to do a pulse check on your team and to see how well they're handling the stress of the current situation. And I think as we approach the start of the school year, especially people that have kids or people that are working in educational institutions where the back to work will be changing, I think that's going to be another time to be very mindful of what your team is feeling as parents are concerned about sending kids back to school, whether that be K-12 or college. So I think there's going to be another uptick of stress and some of those anxiety kind of feelings that are going to be present in the workplace. So, all right, I don't think I have anything else unless anybody has any other questions that they want to, send to me or give me a call. But again, Katie, Heidi, and Mackenzie, thank you, for inviting me to do this. I hope it was informational and hit the marks as far as what you were looking for.
Kelly, as always, you hit it out of the park, and I appreciate all of you other ladies spending some time with us this Friday. And I hope you tune in to the next event, July 14th, and watch your weekly email from the Siouxland Chamber of Commerce, and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you all.